All right, good morning, everybody. It's 8:30. It's time to call the meeting to order of our June 24th County Board meeting. The first item is to approve the agenda, and we do have in front of us two agenda additions, plus Commissioner Everett would like to add a third. I will read these two. The first one is Public Health Administrator Kathy McKay is requesting to fill vacated administrative support position, as well as to request to fill public health nurse position. And item number 2, Technology Services Director Tim Dent requested purchase upgrade to county electronic document storage.
And number 3 would be just discuss the issue with the diversion authorities, talk about federal state jurisdiction on the lawsuits and the progress of the project.
I'll move to approve with the additions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, next we have citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard today on items not on the agenda? Any citizens to be heard? Third and final call. Any citizens to be heard? Okay, we'll move on. Approval of minutes of June 3rd and June 10th.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I guess was everybody satisfied with the language that was put in there and the clarification regarding the Churches United request? I know that was, I'm assuming so. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Approval of bills and vouchers.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Good. Okay. Rhonda, it's
I have some folks with me today.
all righty. West Central Fathers Resource Project.
Just sit in the middle.
Oh, wow.
All right, I'll get us started this morning. I do have Sandy Thorne with us from our Child Support Unit, and Lori Wilwright, one of the coordinators for the Fathers Resource Project. So maybe just to remind the board, this was back in June of 2012 when we first entered into a relationship with this project. It was, if you remember, it was an 11-county project that actually it was provided under Wings out of Alexandria, and they had been providing this project for a while in that area. And then there was also a program in Ottertail County that was run by Ottertail County out of Mahooby. So back in 2012, those two programs merged. They came under the umbrella of Wings, and then they expanded the coverage to 11 counties. And at that point, the 11 counties all contributed some dollars for the program. And so at that time, we contributed, our budget showed a little over $13,000, but if you remember, that was eligible for the federal financial participation, so the net amount that the county paid was $4,339. So we have been contributing that amount to the program for the past 2 years, and now this next third year coming up is the request that was out in the board packet for an increased amount. And the biggest issue with the project is they did lose the $30,000 that was provided by Bremer. It was a grant. That was a grant that was a 2-year, my understanding, for 2 years, and it was for startup dollars. They do have some United Way money coming into the project out of Ottertail County, and I think the plan is, and maybe Lori, you know a little bit more, but I think the plan is to apply for some of those funds through our United Way here. That will be opening up this next year because they're on a 2-year grant cycle. So if those funds were received, we would certainly be looking at the project to consider the budget request, but at this point, they don't have those funds secured. So that's why they're requesting some increased dollars. So I thought maybe you could hear a little bit from Lori about the project and what they've been doing, and Sandy and Jenny Samarja have also been very involved with this project. There was a presentation to the library board this past month to talk about whether there would be some funds through the library board that would support the project, and that the would give some added benefits to having somebody at the library from time to time. So they could talk a little bit about that as well. So can I turn it over to you, Lori?
That's
Okay.
fine. So the Father's Resource Program, basically what we do is we help people file pro se motions. We also help, we do counseling as far as if they come in and they need some parental counseling, that kind of thing. We help them with that, parenting things. But, filing motion to modify child support, establishing custody. If a couple is married and they get a divorce, they don't have to establish custody, but if it's a single parent, single male, and they were never married, he has no rights to that child unless he goes in and establishes custody. So we work with them on that. We may spend, I was mentioning to you earlier, we may spend 45 minutes talking to them, just letting them vent their story. We're there for support. The self-help forms are very difficult to fill out. We're finding that even as there's a very small percentage that can successfully fill them out, but it's a trickier thing is to file them correctly. So court administration is, usually sending them back. I had 2 calls yesterday from 2 individuals that gave it a shot, and court administration sent it back, and now they didn't know what to do. So basically, they're coming to me so I can help them get it filed correctly. So, but we're there. We cover the 11 counties. Right now, we have a gal. Her name is Lynn Nesland, and she's covering Wadena, Todd, Polk, and Douglas. She's covering Douglas up until September 1st. That's when Douglas' contract ends. And then we possibly might be getting Morrison County, which would piggyback with, I believe it's Todd. I'm not sure. It's a lot going on right now. So we're trying to get everything organized and under an umbrella. I come out to Clay County myself every other Tuesday, and I see clients here every other Tuesday. And if needed, there's some that I've had from Clay that live maybe they have to file a motion in Clay, but maybe they live out in the Otter Tail area, Otter Tail County area, and they'll come in and see me out there. Or if they're too far away, we'll do a phone just for convenience. So do what we can to help.
And for my staff, this has really been a huge relief for them, because our hands are often tied in what we can do or what we can help people with. And for us to be able to say, hey, I've got somebody you can talk to who might be able to help you or help you figure out what you need to do. Or a lot of times they just want us to help fill out forms, which we also aren't able to do. Just to be able to help these people get things done is very, very helpful for all of my staff. There are certain things we can help them with, the custody issue, parenting time, and both of those are huge now because that directly affects what the child support obligation could be with the new guidelines that we're working under. With modifications, if it doesn't meet a certain criteria, we're not able to proceed, but they can still try on their own, and sometimes they do have success going in front of the magistrate to explain their situation. Did you have a question?
Yes, you said you can't help them fill out forms. Why can't you help them fill out forms?
If they're legal documents, we're not allowed to give legal advice. And so the state has directed us that we should not be helping them complete forms.
Okay.
Other things that they need help with is if there's a custody change. So there's a court order, mom has custody, but the child's now living with the father. they need to go in and get a custody change, they need to stop their child support obligation, and those are all things that we're not able to help them with. So, most of our clients, or not most, but a good part of them can't afford an attorney. And so they have to do it on their own, and having that option for them to be able to do that is really necessary.
And just to be clear too, we don't give, legal advice. I mean, we're not lawyers, but we will guide them in the right direction where they can find that. My background is I have a master's in counseling, so I'll help with parenting, things like that, but not as far as legal advice. I don't do that. So.
How many clients in Clay County do you normally have at a time, and how long do you work with them normally?
I try and book, when I'm here every other week, I try and book at least 3 in the day. Having them show up is another thing. I schedule about a month out, and so approximately about 4 a month is what is really what we've been seeing. About 4 in Clay County. 4 motions filed, yeah. That doesn't, but phone calls and everything else. There might be some that I see that I didn't do a motion for.
And is there any cost to the client?
There's no cost to them whatsoever, other than their court fee, which isn't to us, it's to court administration. But it's a nonprofit, so.
Who are you employee of? I mean,
Mojave Otwa is the
Your employer.
employer.
Community action.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Jen.
just a comment. I watched Rhonda present about this program. It probably was a year ago now, and it piqued my interest because it ties in really nicely with the law library here in the courthouse. In my mind, it ties in very nicely. We have a self-help terminal that generates all the legal forms, and we often have individuals in there trying to fill out the forms, and we see them struggling. We have a law librarian downstairs, however, she's not an attorney and can't help with that aspect of it either. So when I heard about this program a year ago, I thought it was pretty interesting, and I inquired with Rhonda going forward if there was any way that we could possibly partner with the law library and bringing Lori or the program into the law library to kind of make it an added benefit to draw people into the law library and added service for the public. Rhonda approached me then earlier this year and said, there is some funding that we would need some help with. Would the law library still be interested? Lori, Sandy were at the law library board meeting in March and presented this to the law library board. Unfortunately, we didn't have we had a 5-person quorum, so it was just a minimum quorum, and nobody was inclined to make a motion to support the funding. So that's where that lies. We could revisit the issue at the law library board, but it had come up so quickly that I don't feel the members of the board felt that they knew enough about it, and there was some question also about the law library's function in providing a service versus providing materials. And so we wanted to look further into the bylaws to see what we could or couldn't do. But speaking just from my observations of the program, I'm the attorney that does the child support work for the county attorney's office. And I do see pro se motions being filed quite often with the help of this program, and it does serve a very good purpose in the county, and it takes some of the pressures off of the child support officers that deal with individuals who really the child support office can't help, but they still need help. So from that perspective, I feel it's a valuable program, and I wish the law library could have gotten things together quickly to help out, but we just couldn't make that work on such short notice.
John.
On the funding sheet here for the various counties, we're asking for $9,346 from Clay County this year, and it was 43 before, so we're a little over double.
Correct.
We're asking. Is this pretty much, if the program was to continue, we were to fund this, Is it likely it would be the same next year, or are we looking at increases each year? Do you know what?
I don't have a clue on the funding.
Well, my understanding is that, and on the page back, that really represents mostly the county funding and then a small amount, I think it was $6,000 from the United Way of Ottertail County. So really what's funding the program right now is the 11 counties and that $6,000 from United Way. So I don't anticipate that this large of an increase would be requested in the future. In fact, I'm hopeful that they will come into the United Way funding cycle, and the plan is that they would request some funds from the United Way so that maybe we would see some reduced costs, or at least it would stay stable.
In your budget, is there room for this, or do we?
Well, this has been kind of odd because this originally, when this funding started out, it was from July through June, and I think that was related to the United Way or Bremer funding, so they set their budget up in that way. This new request goes from October, I believe. September. Through then August of the next year. So I was just looking at our budget, and the amount, the $4,339 that we paid for the last year was paid out of this year's budget. So it would have gone from July 13 to June 14. So I probably would pay this amount in January of 2015. 15 would be my thought. However, I'm not really certain if they were wanting that before then, but we can make it work within the budget, within this year's budget if we need to. Otherwise, I would plan to wait till January of 2015.
You're talking about the extra funds?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you done, John?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm just trying to figure out what funding is, you think you make this year's work, and then next year we'd be looking at the 9,000?
I would put that in the budget, correct.
For next year.
Right.
So there'd be a 100% increase over the previous year.
It sounds like it's a program that's well worth it if we can figure out how to fund it.
Frank,
Have any of the other counties addressed this year?
They're all
Because
bringing
it's about
it.
120% increase for every county.
Right. My understanding is they're all bringing it to their boards at this point. I believe Traverse, Wilkin have approved. I'm not sure about Ottertail. They may be going today. Douglas County went last week, and they are not going to continue their participation in the program. But what I clarified was that would not impact the amount that's being requested from Clay County. What they would do is they would just reorganize resources in that area in terms of programming.
I guess that was my question. I heard that Douglas voted it out.
Yes.
I mean, that $10,000 would have to be spread out. Someone's going to have to pay that salary, though, isn't it? Or...
Well, the program right now, actually since we've become involved, this program's gone through quite a few transitions. Originally in 2012, this was a program, as we indicated, were two separate programs. They combined under Wings out of Alexandria. Since then, Wings has dissolved. The program has now gone back under Mahooby. Since that time, the two individuals involved in delivering the service have resigned. And so Lori is new. Lori's been on
Since March.
Mm-hmm. And the most recent resignation was the second FTE that serves that southern area. So now, knowing that Douglas County will not be in the project, they have some thinking to do. If Morrison comes on board, they'll have to decide whether that's a full-time FTE or whether it's not full-time. So the understanding is that would not increase the amount that we're approving today, and it wouldn't lessen the service that we're getting in Clay County.
Well, I just sort of look at, it's going to cost us another, well, I add the two figures together, $13,000, and I think Douglas out, I feel it's going to increase a little bit, so I'll just say $15,000. Jenny says the importance of the program, they're explaining the importance of the program. Could we add that as just to a staff person here? I mean, we're talking $15,000. I mean, right now, we're sharing it with 5 different counties, according to this here. You know, if we added it just to a staff person here, and she's only here twice a month. You know, if we added that much funding to our staff people, should we do that locally?
Well, I guess those are good questions. And they kind of, I want to piggyback off them a little bit. And the question about that Commissioner Whalen asked and follow-up from Commissioner Gross in terms of what other counties are doing, it's a little concerning to me that we've only heard of 2 so far that are willing to move forward with the 120% increase. To me, there's several factors involved here. The good news to me is that this time period goes from September to August. One of the concerns that I always express as we move into our budget times is that this is funding, in my opinion, to another third party to the county. And I find it difficult to support 120% increase to a third party county issue and grant that support before we have seen what we as a county and what our county staff needs for our regular budget. That does concern me, that we're I understand that the timing might say, well, boy, we'd sure like to get this approved now. I'm sure every one of our department heads would love to get their requests approved today too. But we need to look at this as a big county-wide picture and ultimately what we end up doing in terms of a levy. I really appreciate what Jenny said. To me, this right now isn't so much about, is this the appropriate thing to do, because it certainly sounds like it is, but everything comes with a price tag, and as Commissioner Gross was talking, you know, what if Otter Tail were to bow out from this? That's another $13,000, a significant dollar amount of the total package. What does that leave us with? And then would somebody come back to us and say, well, you're $9,000 because of these other situations, and because we have to recalculate everything and relook at everything, that $9,000 might become something even more. And that concerns me this early in the stage. What I do say is that I feel the good news in this is that we're talking about a time period from September to the following August. And we're going to be very clear, or know very closely, we have to have our preliminary set in early September. So these next couple months we'll be going hot and heavy in our budget and see what our individual departments want. And for me personally, I wholeheartedly agree about its significance, but I'm not ready to support 120% increase until we get the entire picture from the whole county and act on it in that fashion. Grant.
I guess I agree with that, Kevin, but Jenny, did you say that we could possibly pay this out of law library funds if the board?
That was the discussion and the presentation to the law library board, because we've often in the law library said, you know, going forward in a big picture kind of look, we would love to have real live people in the library to help. Many counties have a part-time law librarian that is legally trained and can provide that assistance. And when I heard Rhonda's presentation, I thought this was kind of a baby step towards that, if we could start getting people into the law library. So with that in mind, it was presented, but it raised many questions that we just didn't have time to answer. And the most significant was whether our bylaws support the board providing a service to the members of Clay County versus the way it seems to be written is that we can take action to provide publication and materials, but not necessarily a service. So we didn't want to step outside of our bylaws and do something that was not authorized to us as a board.
Who would determine that issue? You?
It was largely me. Tracy Gompf is our member from MSUM. He's also an attorney, and he's the one that brought up the question about could we legally do this as a board?
Well, maybe we should call another law library meeting, a special one, just to talk about this
And we
issue.
can do
see
that
if we
too.
can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then that'll give us some time to see, that might be a possible source of funding that, because there is money available there through the, our
Correct.
law library.
Well, I think that's an excellent idea, and at the same point in time, I would assume that all of these other counties, it's been requested to be on their agendas, in the near future.
Yep.
And it would be nice to see which of those responded and in what way they responded.
Okay.
And then after that happens, you would kind of have an idea of what dollars you would have to work with, and how would that program change if 2 or 3 or 4 counties dropped out? How would the program change, or would you expect the program to remain the same and then readjust the contributions for the counties that want to stay in the program? That I see as the two options. Because if you're running short of money, you're either going to have to alter your services, or you're going to ask those that are still players in the game to pay more. I don't know of any other option out there. We do have this option about bringing in another third potential one, being the law library with some funds, and I have no problem with that. But John,
Is it something we could do to look at committing the funding for the rest of this year, and then looking at the ongoing funding to be part of the next budget? So in other words, we could, and that would give time between now and starting to find out what the other counties are doing. If we committed to we would continue to fund the program at the requested number, so it'd be 1/4, I suppose, of this 93. We would be committing to go from September through December,
Correct.
and then looking at how you could put it into the budget, one of the budgets, law library or your budget or
Right.
whatever for next year.
Yeah, and I have asked them to adjust this to be on a calendar year, because I think this, when it comes in June and September, and sometimes different ones go October, it makes it challenging how to request it, because normally I would have put this in a budget request and we would have reviewed it with the whole 2015 budget. But I will be meeting with at least 9 of these counties on Thursday, so we'll get an update with where they're at with the program. And we could talk about, whether, the challenge is, of course, and as you saw in their letter, they were hoping for a response from all the counties by the end of June. Obviously, they've been in a state of transition, so they're trying to figure out what to do and hiring this next position. So we could revisit it in the next week. I can collect some more information about what the other counties have decided, and
if you would, that would
Sure.
be helpful.
I do know Wadena is going to their board in July. We just presented there about 2 weeks ago, so, yeah.
Yes, I just would like to see, rather than dropping a program in midstream, that we continue it for the rest of the year at least, and then figure out for next year's budget.
Well,
how we could-
I certainly think that would be a little bit more feasible right now to me than to start granting that 120% increase going into all of next year before we've heard from anybody else in our county. But if the program is that good and it meant a couple $1,000 investment to keep it through till we can really have a financial plan going forward, that I would support those efforts to do that. Frank.
Well, I guess I'm a little bit concerned to say, well, we're going to see what the other counties are going to do, What if everybody's saying that?
Well, that's why I think we could make a positive statement to, to give just more time.
I mean, I'm fully in support of this program. I'm not against the program. I'm just wondering whether we could do it better just in Clay County. I mean, we have staff right here in Clay County and doing it, and I just,
Well,
I don't know that we do without having to add it.
I would have to add, right?
Because I think Sandy said that it's actually given relief to her department by having these other people do it. So.
And we aren't able to do it in my unit.
Well,
to me, that's it's the risk of creating another monster. You have him. You start out. Well, we only need 10 hours a month to do this, and before you know it, we've got an $80,000 a year benefited employee to do what is being done effectively by an outside agency. And I don't think we're saying, I mean, I think everybody supports what they're doing. I mean, we have to be, realistic. I mean, we might, it's 120% increase in what we funded. So, what decision we make, we're going to get those increases coming like we do everywhere from agencies. So I think we have to be careful about, how we do it. And so I think this gives us, to expect a decision, with that kind of an increase, we need a little time to see what we can do and how we can find a source to fund it. And we maybe the library is that source. So.
Yeah, and maybe in the conversations on Thursday too, the idea about maybe each county looking to contribute funds to the end of this year and then getting this program on a calendar year, and it would also buy us some time to assess what the status will be with Douglas County leaving and Morrison County coming in. So with those transitions, maybe in the next couple weeks we'll have some more information.
Just one more comment going to that, and based on Commissioner Everett's suggestion about going to the end of December. Does it help or hurt in any way when we go to the United Ways and the Bremers? Does it make a difference if we're on a calendar year compared to a fiscal year to them? Are there advantages being on a calendar year? Do they operate more on a calendar year basis? I mean, some of those things can even come into play, where maybe we would see more favorable response to.
Right. I don't know the answer to that, but it's certainly something I can ask. I was originally thinking the reason we weren't on a calendar year was because of some of those grant programs, but I could be mistaken.
And I don't know
yeah,
either, but
right.
I think it's worthy of discussing with them.
Right.
Right, so at this point, I think we kind of got some direction for you.
Okay.
I think that we support the program, but we just question how we can do the funding and not be facing, if half the counties don't participate, how are you going to fund it? Are we going to then be asked for more?
That's the key. So
I'm going to leave these for you, cards and brochures for you. So.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Ray.
Thank you.
Sandy, Rhonda, thank you. And Rhonda, I think we'll kind of leave it up to you to get this back on when you think it's appropriate. Sure. Okay, next we have our review of Clay County Economic Development Authority as managed by statute. And Jenny's going to join us here, and Tim's going to join us. And good morning.
Good morning again. So the topic this morning is the Economic Development Authority. If you remember back to May of last year, this board utilized a Minnesota statute which allows both cities and counties to establish their own economic development authority. And at the time we did so to take a look at some TIF requests and some tax abatements that were that posed an economic incentive for the county. And so we did go through the statutory steps that were required to establish the authority. We had a committee to start out with, and we made recommendations to the board. And when this board decided to pass the resolution to establish the authority, one of the choices was to make the county board the authority. And that was the choice that this board made. So both the county board and the Economic Development Authority are one and the same for membership. And we've had to convene the Economic Development Authority separate from the county board once or twice, I believe. And why this makes a difference is because the statute requires that within 60 days of the year anniversary of developing this this authority, that the Economic Development Authority provide a report to the county board as to how things are going. So if you catch what I'm saying, it requires you to report to yourself. And so when this came up, I thought, well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to make the board report to itself? So it's a bit of a unique circumstance, but what I'm proposing is that you as the county board take this topic up today, have a bit of discussion as to how you feel the Economic Development Authority has operated, if there's any ways that we could make that authority work more efficiently, or any changes that maybe would be recommended from what we've seen in the past year. And if there's a formal process to make those changes, and I can help you with that process. If there are not, then you as the county board can choose just to move and pass a motion just saying that the Economic Development Authority will remain the same. This is a one-time review. We don't have to review it again. We can review it at any time, but this one-year review is the only mandatory review.
If we were, if the EDA was a separate committee, it seems to me that's the way we ought to think about it, as if there was somebody else, and if we were making comments about their function. I'd have one comment, is that they don't meet very often.
Right.
We haven't met. Have we met once? Twice?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
Yes.
you meet for purposes of an application.
Projects.
Yeah.
A project. So I think there's been the 2 projects in Hawley,
In Hawley.
that have come before the Economic Development Authority, and there hasn't been an application since then.
No, we've had queries, we've sent application packets out to a couple of different businesses who are looking at doing expansions in the county, but we haven't received anything back from them to date. You know, when we do receive material back from them, the EDA will be.
So we have met all of the, we have functioned effectively. We've done
Yes.
everything we needed to do. Is that correct?
Right, we had 2 requests for tax abatements. We reviewed the applications, we scored them, and brought to the EDA recommendations for abatements, and both of those were granted in a little bit different formats than the others, but it was abatements over 5 years, a certain percentage per year through the 5 years.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is, obviously just to create the criteria, it took a considerable amount of time, and we had a fairly large citizenry that helped us to establish what the criteria is that the Economic Development Authority had to use in determining what to do. And you talked about these 2 entities that came out of Hawley, and they both came in and they had their request for what they wanted of the county, and there certainly ended up being some disagreement on what they wanted versus what they graded in our grading system, and we also use the knowledge and expertise of the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Authority to also help us in this whole process, and that was, I think, very beneficial to us as well. So Jenny, in my mind, for this first year, I believe that this group has acted well. It's had very good criteria to work with potential applicants, and a lot of times change comes from controversy. And there was really no controversy. Once we showed them how it was graded, they did not dispute how we graded it, you know. And so with all that being said, I certainly support what we have in its current format, and I would recommend no changes to our current plan. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, it would require a motion.
Okay.
A formal motion, if that's the wishes of the board, and then this will be put to rest unless and until there's a point that something comes up and we want to look at it again, we can do that at any time. But this one-year review is required.
And there's no telling that. There could be something down the road that comes up that somebody's going to challenge an area that we maybe never expected to be challenged, and then we might have to look at reviews.
So I'll move for no change.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you,
Very
Jimmy.
good.
Thank you,
Thank
Tim. Okay. Darren. Performance Measurement Program. Good morning, Darren.
Good morning.
Dan.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I think you have the packet to see if we want to participate in the state auditor's performance measurement program again for 2014. We did participate in 2011 and 12, and we have to let them know by July 1st whether we're going to participate in the program again for 2014.
Can you give a brief overview?
Yeah, basically what it is it's a program that is designed to get statistics or surveys from the departments and then report that out to the citizens. And it's kind of a, how is the county doing in these areas? And the original program had listed 10 different areas to evaluate. And then some of this information is available on different websites. Some of the departments track this information individually and then give that to us, and then I compile that into a report and then send that to the state. This year, they expanded the categories a little bit more, and that's the sheet that you see right here. And that's a little bit longer than the one that we did the other years, but it kind of breaks it down into what we would be looking at. I am in the process of collecting the results for 2013 to report back to them. The only thing that I did not do, which is my fault, is I did not do a county survey last year. We did it the year before, and then I thought I had missed the deadline already, and so the county survey was not done for last year. I'm still collecting all the results from the departments for last year, and I'll submit that to the state auditor when I get that all compiled. But this would be for participation in the program in 2014. What we would then do is, actually with our new website that we have the ability to do surveys right on our website, and we would do another survey by the end of the year and then report out at the end of the year the results of that survey for the citizens. And let's see, am I missing anything else? We do get reimbursed if we complete the program. We do get reimbursed for 14 cents per citizen, which comes out to about $8,259 total reimbursement, and also an exemption from state levy limits for taxables payable in the following year. I don't think we got that last year, but we did get the $8,259 for participating.
Does that cover the cost of that $8,000 of dealing with this?
Yeah, because it's basically receiving all the information from the departments. Now, if we would have had to mail out the results, or if we would have had to mail out surveys, then that would have cut into that $8,000 a little bit. But we did our survey online, so when we did do the survey, citizen survey the last time, every time somebody went to our Clay County website, the first thing that would pop up would say, do you want to take a survey? And then if they said yes, or not now, if they said yes, then it would take them directly to the survey and they would fill that out. And I can't remember off the top of my head how many people actually filled it out. We also did have some surveys, paper surveys that we put down in motor vehicle last time, and I think we had some paper surveys that we put down in Veteran Service Office that they filled out, and then we got those paper surveys and then typed it in ourselves so that we would all have it electronic. And I still have those results as well. When I talked to the lady up at the State Auditor's Department, she says that I could submit those survey results, but it wouldn't be the most current one, which should have been done last year. So that would be the only thing that would be the sticking point in last year's performance program. The resolution in front of you would be for this year, and really it runs from January 1st to December 31st for the reporting, but then you report back to the state auditor the following year of July 1st. So we'll report 2014 in July 1st of 2015. And so that's what kind of gets you screwed up in the timeline.
Ryan?
And just one additional thing that you folks engage yourself and the public in that helps with this measure, this performance measure, is that you are broadcast live to your citizenry, and you ask every single week about citizen input, and you have an open mic for them. And we feel that is a big part of this measurement as well for public input.
Yeah.
I remember when we first started, it's just 2 years we've done it, right? That it was, we obviously decided it was worthwhile doing simply because we should meet these standards, not because the money that was going to be reimbursed was going to cover your time or others' time in doing it. But so I think we definitely should continue this, and I presume we need to move the resolution that's included. I would move that resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Nikki, because this is asking for detailed voting, I would ask you to call for the roll.
Whalen?
Yes.
Jeffers?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes. Okay. That motion carried. Thanks, Darren.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have authorization to enter into a joint powers agreement with Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste Authority.
Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Wonderful. How are you?
Very good.
You brought a guest.
I brought infantry along here today. Some of you know Mike Keenan. Mike Keenan's the solid waste officer in Otter Tail County. He's also the executive director of Prairie Lakes Joint Powers Board. What we have here today, we've talked about this before, but it basically formalizes our relationship with Prairie Lakes. I don't know how much detail you want me to go through. I can certainly walk through the addendum, which we have already talked about. It's whatever you choose, Mr. Chairman.
Probably the most significant thing is you have highlighted here the debt obligation is the main thing we're committing to as far as the cost.
Exactly. Essentially, as a partnership, we're entering a partnership, and 15% of the partnership, we agree that we'll pay $195,000 initial participation to take care of the back costs that the counties that currently are involved in the project are involved with. And as we move forward, if there are any additional expenses, the Clay County will pay 15% of those costs. This is pretty significant. I think this is a very good project. I think that, I know that Commissioner Everett's seen it, and, he's been very impressed by it. It's an excellent project.
Well, I want to comment a little bit about this because, and as Mike knows, before you're here, Kirk, we here in Clay County had heard concerns from throughout the region, I think, in terms of issues related to solid waste. And it went so far as to when we tried to get something going on a regional concept, we had those meetings here in Clay County, and we had counties all the way up, including Grand Forks County, also being very interested in this project. And obviously, something as big as that, there always is too many wrenches thrown at it to knock it down. But when we had the opportunity and the ability to take a look at what your group had done, and then the area of needs where you were still missing, where Clay County had the ability to step in, to me, it just all made sense that in order to extend the life of our landfill, which is very expensive to have to always increase its capacity, this was an excellent opportunity for Clay County. And, when we start talking about these fund dollars to buy in, they're not cheap, but we have them. We have those funds, and those funds can be used in that manner as opposed to expanding what we already have right now. Right? Now, there are certain things that we want to do on our own site that's going to also have some costs associated down the road, but over the years, through our financial management and with the SWAC's understanding, I think we're in good position to be able to do those things. So I applaud the recent efforts and the Mike, your work too. I think even though you come and represent that entity, I think you carried forward well our message and our concerns and how we wanted to become a player in it. And ultimately, I think this is very good for Clay County. I just really do, and it certainly sends a message to the MPCA that we don't want to tackle all of our solid waste issues alone, that we want to do it on a regional basis, and that's exactly what they're looking for.
They are.
And so I think we're really on the right track here, and I'm glad, Kirk, since you've come on too, you've even pushed the envelope further to get it actually signed. So
thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's been a long time coming. We've worked and redrafted, and Kirk has worked real hard getting provisions in it that are acceptable to both sides, I think. And I'm very pleased with the agreement. I think it's time that we do this.
I'll move that we enter into the Prairie Lakes Municipal Solid Waste Authority Joint Powers Agreement.
Okay, now the one question that I have not asked is if Jenny's reviewed this.
She has not reviewed this, no.
I would request that we have it subject to Jenny's.
I'll amend the motion to include that.
Can I just include it in your motion that it
Yes.
meets Jenny's,
Yep.
our legal counsel's approval?
And we're going to do the addendum separately, right?
Yes.
Or you can do it separately? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so this motion was to enter into the joint powers agreement subject to our legal counsel's approval. Any further comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I interject here just so that I can kind of explain the process? What this would be doing is amending the current joint powers agreement. So it'll take a little bit of time to get done, and if you'll notice the way this agreement is written, it is written so that if individual boards adopt it and sign it, that everybody has signed a separate one and they fit together as a total document. But in the end, what the Prairie Lakes Board has typically liked to do, even with those, is after that's all done, they'll send 5 of them around for signature by everybody, so everybody does get an original in the end.
All right. Let's Good clarification. We did not vote yet, did we?
No.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. All right, now we have the addendum. Let's talk about the addendum.
Mr. Chairman, essentially the addendum is it's explanation of the responsibility and the roles that Clay County has towards this joint powers effort. I can walk through it. We've discussed it before. It's pretty straightforward. Again, we're a 15% owner of the facility, and as part of that, we're contributing $195,000 towards the Joint Powers Group. We agreed to accept fines from the facility, 6,000 tons at no tipping fee. The Prairie Lakes Group will pay for the transportation. Anything above 6,000 tons up to a maximum of 11,000 tons. The Prairie Lakes Group will pay for transportation and tipping fee at the landfill. And one of the things that we tried to do with the agreement, and that was to address your concerns, is to make it clear that that rate can go up or it could go down. It'll probably go up, but it depends on the budgetary requirements or functions of each county. The other part of it is that the county or the Prairie Lakes will accept 6,000 tons of mixed municipal solid waste from Clay County, and for the first 6,000 tons, there will be no tipping fee. Essentially, we're going to be paying the transportation cost, but hopefully we'll be able to backhaul and minimize the transportation cost. For anything over 6,000 tons of mixed municipal solid waste up to 11,000 tons, we'll pay the tipping fee and transportation cost. And again, the tipping fee may change. It depends on their budgetary function.
Or our budget.
Your budgetary, I'm sorry.
I was including Clay County.
Oh, our, yeah, that's true. That's true. And we'll have a vote at that point in time. Clay County will also take up to 5,000 tons of unprocessed waste at the landfill if the Prairie Lakes has overcapacity, or if they're broken down, we'll take mixed municipal solid waste. And that's basically the highlights, I think, of what we're talking about here.
And I think the important thing for the public to note here is all of these, if you want to call them stipulations that Clay County has presented to this agreement, all work in good hand, I think, with what the larger group wants to have, but also by us entering into this agreement to begin with, it does still go to the fact that the number one overriding thing that we want to accomplish is to extend the life of Clay County's landfill. And so all of these bullet points that we have here that talks about minimum and maximums of tons being accepted, all of those are designed with the idea in mind that in the worst case scenario, it would not do the opposite and reduce the life of our landfill. Kirk, am I correct in that?
That's right. That's exactly right.
That was kind of our goal here. If our goal was to go to a regional concept and yet save the life of our landfill, it'd be contrary to do something then that would reduce the life of our landfill. So I think this helps protect it. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment. I think over the years we can see that we've done a lot of things, a lot of important things to extend the life of the landfill, and this is certainly one of them. But when I was elected 20 years ago, we were told that there were 16 years left in our landfill. Now that's 20 years ago, and now, Kirk, recently when we were asked, you said we have 50 years left?
51 years is what...
in our landfill. So we've done an amazing job of extending the life of that facility.
But as Commissioner Campbell pointed out, it came at a cost. I mean, it cost you guys a lot of money.
It costs a lot of money to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And you talk about changing to go higher and all of these different things that we went through. It costs significant an investment, and we want to protect that investment now so that next generations in Clay County also have the ability and know that they have a safe place to.
And one way we've done that is through recycling, and we have plans to do a lot more, and to increase significantly the amount of material that is recycled in the county.
And I think that that's one of the things, Mr. Chairman, that we're going to be talking about on Thursday, and I'll be coming back to the full group here soon, probably next Tuesday again, to do a joint study for a transfer station and a MRF with the city of Moorhead. It's pretty positive, some of the things that are happening. So, but again, that'll come at a cost as well.
Yeah. Okay, so our next step is we need to authorize this
Addendum. Mr. Chair, I would move the addendum as printed here, as including the materials and the figures that Kirk just went over with us.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And obviously, part one that we passed, these requirements of this addendum need to follow suit with the partnership. Without this addendum,
We have nothing.
we have nothing. So, okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear in the record.
I mean, it looks like it's a great deal here, but are there any counties that are looking at getting in on this too, or is this as far as we want to go?
Well,
Or?
if I can comment on that, what they have is a limited amount of ability to handle solid waste.
Okay.
And so, quite frankly, that's why myself and John and our SWAC committee saw the importance of pushing towards this when we did, because they only have a limited capacity. And if we hadn't gotten in, and some other county had gotten in before us, we may not have had the opportunity to even join. So in answer to your question, can more counties come in? It's unlikely, because with Clay County now part of this, we're filling up what is going to be their capacities of the burner.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might add to that, you are exactly correct. During the course of deciding to expand the project as it currently exists, which we're right in the middle of doing right now, we've talked to Clay County, we've talked to Cass County, Minnesota, we've talked to Hubbard County, Minnesota. As we began to have our discussions with Clay County, it seemed like a really, really nice fit. Obviously, you're closer than some of the other counties, but to be fair, you had a landfill. We needed a home for fines. Transportation routes between, whether it's I-94 or Highway 10, seemed to start to make sense. Clay County seemed more in a position to move forward with joining the group. Whatever county would have joined would have taken what additional capacity Prairie Lakes had. And I'm happy to say, I believe our board members are very happy that it's Clay County.
Yeah.
We've had some interactions with board members, and they've all been positive.
I, for a few years, have had conversations with one commissioner from another county who's a member, and back and forth, we've gone an awful long time on this, and you're exactly right, he really wanted Clay County involved with this, and I had told him we'll do what we can, and it's a process that I think it took a little time, but I think this is really good.
Mr. Chairman, I think you alluded to it earlier. I've heard some awful good things from the MPCA about this happening. They're just really happy to see this regional concept broaden and come together.
Yeah. Very good. Did we vote on that motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
And if I might interject just a couple more things. I know that as this moves forward, it's got to go to all the other counties. The Prairie Lakes Board meets the fourth Wednesday of each month, and that is this week. And even though these aren't all signed and done, I'd like to invite Clay County board members to feel free to come to those meetings between now and September and join in the discussions and that type of thing as well. I also look forward to working with Kirk. We've been discussing, you discussed recycling, and that's another part of solid waste that's evolving, and Otter Tail in general is having a discussion on where we go with recycling, whether we continue or separate or we move into commingle or something like that. And Kirk and I and Steve from Becker County are having some conversations there. So we'll probably be back talking with you as board members.
Excellent.
I just want to comment too that we probably could not have done this without your work, Mike.
Yeah.
You've really been helpful and answered our questions and given us assurance that things are going to work well here. So thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it was nice, you were able to hear our early on, what we threw out there as membership options, and you'd come back and say, well, I don't think that's going to cut it, but maybe this will. So you kind of became a good in-between person for us to relay information, so.
Thank you. I've enjoyed working with you and look
thank you as
forward to it
well,
in the
so,
future.
yeah, very good. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
See you Thursday morning.
Absolutely.
All righty.
You got donuts this week?
That's your turn.
Thank you.
You know what, if you wouldn't have those meetings so darn early, I might be able to get to a donut store.
We want to talk about that, actually. Thank you.
Okay, so we have,
One question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Do we need to make a formal appointment for that board?
yeah, and I think we'll,
Or we wait
we'll
for a
probably,
week or-
we'll wait till
wait a
it's
week? Okay.
been accepted and everybody's signed off on it.
Okay.
We'll do that. Okay, the public health, first agenda item. Kathy, good morning. You have a couple of requests here. You brought reinforcements with you.
She must be expecting a hard time, so she...
Yes, I am expecting, it's Tuesday, isn't it? I have to bring my supervisors for these positions, just in case you have any questions.
Okay, let's start with the vacated administrative position.
Okay, and sorry for the late addition, we just got that notice that a person was leaving in that position. So we're requesting to fill that, and we need to get that filled quite quickly because we also had another retirement in the administrative support area. So in that position, we're reworking. So I'm not here to request that, but just the one that's leaving currently on a grade 8 and step 8. So as Darren worked up the salary calculation worksheet, we would be, of course, saving some money because we would bring someone in the first 3 steps. And this person is on a step 8. So it's a full-time position, working in many of the program areas that we have, so I'm requesting that replacement.
Right?
Sure, I would move that we hire a replacement
Okay.
for the...
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Frank, you have a question.
Did you say the person leaving or the person coming on is going to be grade A, step 8?
Nope, the person leaving is grade 8.
Step 8.
And grade 8, step 8, yes,
Okay,
correct.
you want to leave, okay.
Yes.
So is this a position where you could hire internally, or you just need somebody from the outside coming in?
We don't have anyone internally in
Okay.
public health, but we certainly will post it internally in the county
Oh,
in case
yeah,
somebody
okay.
would be interested in coming from
I
another
was just wondering
department.
if we needed to deal with the backfill issue for you, if you were to hire somebody else from your
Oh,
staff. but
sure.
That doesn't apply to you. so,
Sure,
all
right. Might be a backfill issue if there's someone from another department, but
All right, all right, all in favor of the
Okay.
motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. A request to fill public health nurse position.
this was a nurse this position we just filled approximately a couple months ago, less than a couple months ago, and she's leaving unexpectedly, obviously, and so we're requesting to replace her. The public health nurse position is on grade 18. This is a family home visiting nurse, so in order to meet all of the families that we serve in that area, we do need to replace this nurse. It's very unfortunate that we have a quick turnover, but we'll start over again. We do have some pool of applicants from our last interview process that we're hopeful we can pull from, so.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, very good.
Boy, these 2 other women got by really easy.
Yeah, they did.
Tim, there he is. Hi, back there. Good morning, Tim. Tim's here to talk about upgrading to county electronic document storage.
Right. What I'm looking at doing is replacing an existing unit that we very quickly outgrew this year. The recorders did a very large project where they converted a bunch of microfiche to our imaging system, and it kind of killed it. So
Didn't we just buy the system?
a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we did, and it's beyond capacity already. So we're looking at getting a much larger system. This is that equipment that we had discussed at the Recorders Compliance Fund meeting a few months ago, and we concluded there wasn't enough money in the Compliance Fund to purchase this, because the Recorder's Office actually purchased this unit last time. Talked to Diane, and she said there may be money in the Technology Fund, but she wouldn't know that until more towards the end of the year. We do have funds in the Internal Services Fund for replacement of this, but it may short us a little bit, since this unit is more expensive than the existing unit when we purchased it. But like I said, the Recorder's Technology Fund may reimburse us for part of that. We just are not sure.
Yeah, because if you just bought that one 2 years ago, the chances are there's not a whole lot of money in it yet. So.
Correct, right. But we are getting a very generous trade-in on that. They're giving us $10,000 trade-in on that unit. And that unit was less than $20,000 new 2 years ago. So it's a heck of a trade-in. And then with the additional $7,500 discount, Q2 discount, it brought it down to $44,000.
So have you talked to Lori, and does Lori feel that there's some money in the internal service fund that we could upfront this with and
Yeah, I talked to her
them?
yesterday about that. And yes.
Can you explain to me about it says our current system is highly utilized and beyond capacity. This unit includes an off-site replicated system which we would locate off campus. How would you do that? Where do you locate off campus?
At the Joint Highway Facility.
Okay.
We have a high-speed fiber connection out there. So we'll put this unit actually is basically 2 storage units, one locally, one remote, and they're constantly
They mirror each other?
replicating each other.
Okay. All right.
Right now, what we're doing is the system is writing to RDX cartridges, and they're getting rotated off-site. The highway department actually comes and picks them up and stores them as a result out there.
That's backup
every
system.
week.
That would be automatic,
Yes.
now with the new system?
Yeah, so right now, we rotate once every week. So there's always a chance of some data loss in between those times if the building were destroyed. With a system like this, unless both buildings were destroyed at the same time, which is unlikely, we wouldn't lose anything.
So they're both mirroring live.
Correct.
Which is a nice thing.
Mhm.
So if you're, and this is something that we didn't have in the budget for 14, did we?
No, we did not.
Okay.
I was looking at budgeting for the entire thing for next year, or a portion of it. I was planning on budgeting for this for 2015.
Okay. When do you want to implement it?
Next
Tomorrow?
week. Tomorrow.
Yeah. So in order to do that, we're needing to pay it.
Correct.
I mean, they're not going to just say, hey, yeah, we'll give this to you and they'll pay it till 2015 then.
Right.
So I guess my point then is, you've talked to Lori, so without impacting our budget, we can look at internal service fund dollars to pay it up front. You'll then incorporate some of your dollars into the 2015 budget that would basically replenish the internal service fund, right?
Correct.
Is that what you're planning here?
Yes, there's a possibility the technology fund, or the Recorder's Technology Fund, could replenish a good portion of this.
Yeah.
But just in case it doesn't, I will need to put some dollars in the 2015 budget to do that.
Okay.
But we have to do this now to take advantage of that $7,500 reduction.
Correct.
Plus the 10,000 trade-in may or may not be there if we do it in the future. So
That's correct.
I don't think, it's kind of
Right,
something we
and
have to
it's-
do. Timing isn't that great, but it's the same kind of money we should have to do it.
These technology and these things, I remember when we first talked about this system and the document storage management, how good it was going to do for Health and Human Services with all their documents and everything in it. I hope we've got a better handle on its capacity and its life moving forward.
Well, that system is a different one.
Okay, that's a different one altogether.
That's a different, yeah. This
Okay.
is the application extender system that we've been using. We've been using this for over 20, or almost 20 years.
Okay.
And this is where most of the recorder's documents are.
Okay,
the
so this
auditor's
is
documents.
recorded, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Land documents.
Child support uses this too, and some of the other,
Okay.
probation, law enforcement. This is our main document storage system
For land records.
for any documents.
Okay.
I believe we're all the personnel, and there's a lot of.
What, does it include the Health and Human Service documents?
Not the caseworks.
Not the case.
Those are stored separately.
Okay, that's a.
Yeah,
total.
we kept that separate since that was a joint project with Becker and Otter Tail.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And
All
Mr.
right.
Chair, Mr. Chair,
Right.
there is also, in the process, zoning is doing a scanning project along with solid waste to scan their, so those land management documents would be on this system as well.
Correct.
But it won't grow like it did this last year with the huge amount of recorders, right?
Right.
So this was a jar that won't
Right.
be in the next 2 years.
And we don't have those documents that they converted. They're not on this right now. They're accessed through it, but they're not
Accessed
stored on
through it.
our current vaulting system because there wasn't enough room for them.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. There you go,
Right?
Tim.
Yep, thank you.
You got a lot of work this week, DMV, I suppose, now later this week. Are you
Yes.
a lot
Yeah.
involved with getting that all switched over?
Yep. Yep. Should be much easier this time than it was moving them to their calendar.
I think there's a lot of staff over there anxious to get that thing rolling. It's looking
It
really
looks
good.
nice over there.
Looking really good.
And they were terrific last time too, Mr. Chair. They really jumped to it and had them transferred in a couple hours, it seemed like.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, the next agenda addition is discuss issue with the federal state jurisdiction regarding the lawsuits. John.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the lawsuits either, but it's the discussion, as we've heard in the news lately, that the chairman of our diversion authority has been indicating that, indicating that we can proceed with the project without dealing with Minnesota law. And that concerns me. I mean, much of this project, the structure itself in the river will be in Minnesota, with the rerouting of the river after that. Flooding will be in Minnesota, as well as North Dakota. And it seems to me we have to make sure that we're not going to try to do this by skirting Minnesota law. Our citizens have every right to be protected under Minnesota law. And I'm just a bit concerned about the rhetoric that is indicating that they think we can get by without dealing with Minnesota law by making this totally a federal project. And so I have those concerns, and I want to make sure that we stand to make sure that Minnesota law applies to our citizens here.
Well, I guess my perspective on that is that I'm not sure the Joint Powers Board is trying to skirt the law. I think they're trying to probably look at this from the point of view that those opposed to the diversion project are utilizing every means possible to stop the project. And I think the Joint Powers Board, because of that, and from advice from their legal counsel, has to look at all the options that are available. And if that means, I don't know if skirting would be the right word, but if it's possible to move forward with the project by by looking at it from a federal standpoint, I'm sure that's what's being done. I don't think it's, knowing the members of the Joint Powers Board, I don't know that it would be skirting the law is what their goal would be.
I want to comment too on it. In terms of the skirting Minnesota law, I think the diversion authority fully understands the need for what is currently taking place with Minnesota and its own independent environmental review process. And there's no way, shape, or form that the diversion authority is trying to intervene and suggest that not continue to move forward. As a matter of fact, the diversion authority, along with the Corps of Engineers and everybody else, the City of Moorhead staff, everybody has been trying to assist the state of Minnesota in obtaining the information that they need to make their proper decisions. I think where we're getting, where this latest deal occurred was the Wilkin Richland JPA had went to state district court to try to stop the Oxbow-Hickson-Bakke project from taking place. And that, that is something that has been approved by the state of North Dakota. The funding of it's been approved. The project was approved for the state of North Dakota. It was approved through Cass County. It's a governing agency over it. And it's all happening in North Dakota. And even though the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources had issues with that being done, they also agreed that was falling entirely within the state of North Dakota, and that they themselves admitted they probably didn't have any jurisdiction to do anything about it. No way do would I ever expect or want, as a member of the Diversion Authority, to not allow the state of Minnesota to have its appropriate voice in the project. I would never support that. But when you have the same case going before the federal court and the state court, and this is obviously a federal project. I don't know the legalities of it, but it seems to me that if it's a federal project, the federal might trump the state. I don't know how that process works. But I would never, and I agree with you, John, that we should not be considerate that the state of Minnesota might want to have a say in this. That's all I can say. So.
Well, I think it's confusing too when we say it is a federal project, and yet we say that the portion starting right now is completely a state of North Dakota project.
It's funded.
It can't be both. It can't be both.
It's funded by, it was independently approved.
But it would not have been approved if it wasn't for the total project.
Well, we
don't
know that.
Well, we know. No, common sense says nobody's going to come out and build $7 million for a small town out in the country unless it was going to benefit their project.
Yeah, it may have been designed differently. I don't know.
About half the size. Anyway, please have it in the record that I'm concerned about that.
That is so noted.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I can comment also that myself on behalf of Clay County, as well as City of Fargo Council and Watershed Council, we're all in communication about these issues, and I've been updated over the weekend even. Despite the Diversion Authority having counsel, the individual member entities have their own counsel. So I will take your concerns and have those in mind as we move forward on these issues.
Sure, that's good. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes care of those. It's time for committee reports. Frank, I'm going to start with you, please.
Started last Wednesday, I guess, with the University of Minnesota Extension. John's got more to report on that. I had to leave a little bit early on that. We introduced the new part-time person that we hired, and plus 2 interns that they got working for the summer. And then I guess there were staff reports. After that, we went out to the motor vehicle building, and I guess they're looking at moving in there this Friday, and I guess you were there too there, Kevin, and I guess looking at last Friday, I had my doubts that they're going to make it. Now, I hope they do, you know, I mean, they had a plan of making it, and I'm not going to say anything different, you know, but there's a bunch of work to be done yet. Last night I went to Agassiz Recreation Trail meeting. Brian and Jenny were there, and I thank them for being there, where we did approve a resolution to this ban the joint powers. These have to be approved now by each county. They'll be coming next week. That was the main thing we talked to. The DNR was there expressing giving us their opinion of it and stuff. But I think we're going to move ahead with that. It looked like each county was in support of it.
Okay. Brent?
I had nothing.
John?
Well, Frank reported on the extension meeting, and we did have various staff reports after he had to leave the meeting, but they were pretty routine kinds of reports. One of the things that, you know, there was major cutback in the nutrition staffing last year because of federal cutbacks, and then the money was restored after the program was changed. So Rosie, who still works with nutrition, we just have the one person now. We used to have 2. She also covers 2 counties rather than just Clay County. And so it's a lot less hands-on work, but the program is still effective, and she's doing a good job of keeping that going. Other things report, Randy Nelson's was not able to be there, but his report was given by others, and he certainly has continues to do a fantastic job on the horticulture way. He gets very few calls now on ag. Most of the calls with agriculture related to things like contracts, land rents, those kinds of concerns that people are looking for averages and recommendations for those things. But as far as other calls, boy, 90% of the calls are horticulture, and he's doing a super job with that. So that was interesting meeting. And of course, we're getting ready for the fair, which will be 10th through the 13th of July, coming up in just a couple weeks. So we hope that everybody can participate in some way there. The county will be there for part of a day. I did attend the No Excuse for Elder Abuse conference last Wednesday as well, and they had some very good presentations. It was sponsored by our public health and, among others, public health and social service, community action, mental health centers, all of them together cooperated in that event, and it was very good. It was well attended and some great presentations. So, did have my first meeting with concerning the campaign this year. We were invited to 3 townships. All 4 of the candidates in my district were there, and had their annual community picnic where everybody got a chance to. They always invite the law enforcement, so the sheriff's department was there to report on things, and ask the citizens for help and neighbor watch and so on. So that was good. We had an executive committee meeting for the Basin Commission last Thursday, and the Lakeland board meeting yesterday. They also had a local foods initiative meeting yesterday to talk more about the agreement that MetroCog had put forward on local foods that we passed or endorsed a while back, and they're looking at next steps as to what to do with that. Had a campaign meeting for Historical Cultural Society's fundraising project also yesterday. So that's all.
All right, thanks, John.
I was going to just On Randy Nelson,
Yep.
he's also going to have a tour July 1st, next Tuesday.
Yeah, the
at
Rose-
10 to 12 of the different rose gardens and stuff that
Right.
that's going on. Be out at Centennial Park there and a couple of areas out in Dilworth, I think. So.
Yeah, he does, he's done a great job with that Rose demonstration project. But the reason he wasn't at our meeting last week was that he was out of state for a conference dealing with the same company, Earthlink. Is it Earthlink? Earth something. Anyway, that doing that Rose project, then they're looking at grapes, looking at a project for cultivation of grapes, and that we might be able to have some test spots here in Clay County for that. So.
All right. I had 2 meetings last week. One was the DMV construction meeting, which Frank talked about. I did happen to drive by there a couple times, and I see that the lot is now paved, so that's looking good. And with the scheduled, everything is for Friday night, I think, switch everything back and forth. I'm sure that maybe Brian might have another update on this as to things he's learned for this week, so I'll save that for Brian. The other one I had was a PIC committee meeting, personal issues committee meeting this morning, and the primary topic there was the reviewing of the PDQs. And of course, the PDQs are something that we're hopeful to go through all of those job classifications. It's a long process, a lot of them, so I think we're looking at 25% per year. And I think Darren and Jennifer are going to be ready to come before us by December with the 25% for this year, with any recommendations or changes that they see need to be done. So work is going well on that. We got an update on that this morning, and it was good to see that they're on track to get that 25% done. That's all I have. Brian, what do you?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, real quickly on the construction meeting, yes, the parking lot is in. It's going to be striped today. They're working feverishly on the front entrance. The floors were in fact, the room where we were standing in, they were kind of waiting by the door. Yesterday we had a move meeting out there, I should mention, and to get the floors in, and the furniture is scheduled to be set up today and tomorrow, I think it is, and so the floor had to be down, and it's moving along very aggressively, and yes, there's another construction meeting tomorrow morning, but we're on schedule to move at the close of business Friday. So Monday morning should be open for business, so I think it's going to look really nice. We got some work to do on Monday, Tuesday, and the other portion too. We went in and looked at that, and there's been a lot of traffic. I mean, literally thousands of people have been through that temporary area that everybody was in down the hallway, so we'll need to repaint that before they move in, and we'll do that Monday, Tuesday, and talk with Joe about that. So, yeah, we're pretty excited. There's some things to be done yet, but it's going well. We had a land management lien recap. Darren had scheduled that, and if you remember right, a couple months ago, we had a lien event with the land management departments, I think about 5 different disciplines, assessors, the auditors, and the GPS, and things like that. So I think we really accomplished some streamlining of activities there and improved service to the public and cut down a great deal. They're a real positive group in regards to it. Had some individual budget discussions with some of the departments. I think the deadline is today to get their worksheets in, and we can start compiling information, and we can certainly keep you very abreast on that. Had a central admin managers meeting, which I thought went really well. Jenny and I met with Georgia again, referenced the enterprise group. We're getting close on that, but got some questions. We want to work through this, and I know we're taking our time on it, but we want to know where we're going to go before we bring it to you and have answered all the questions that need to be answered, so that we can answer them truthfully and accurately and to the best of our knowledge to you folks. Attended that art meeting last night. I thought it went really well. I have to compliment Frank here on carrying this load. It wasn't but 3-4 months ago that I think he asked Jenny and I to get involved in it. Well, he went to Jenny for some updates, and then he brought it to the board, and Kevin, you asked that we get involved, and you said, I don't know where it's going. Well, now we know where it's going, and it'll be brought back to the individual boards, so it's on track. It's going to be a big change, or somewhat of a change, but it's a change that's needed. One comment on that, the gentleman that you appointed last week, Kim, what's Kim's last name? Severson, yeah, rode with us, and he's also on that ag, that West Central Ag in Ulen, and he said, I just want to put a plug in for that. He said that's over a $500 million business in Clay County right now. It's grown just fabulously, so we said we'd pass that along to you guys. And then we had the PIC meeting this morning that was covered well by your chair. Thank you.
All right. One question, Brian, what kind of agenda are we going to have for the joint meeting with the city?
Yeah, well, we've talked about that on a few times. We're certainly looking for topics, hopefully to visit with your chair and theirs too. But we had a meeting with them. Well, one will be solid waste. We'll hopefully want to talk about solid waste, and the other is, we talked about the jail project. I don't know how much we're going to get into that. We've had a meeting with the city in regards to that, but we thought that would be another very... MetroCog is going to give a short presentation on the, long-term, the 20, 40-year projections on that. So there's just a couple ideas. Hopefully we'll work with the mayor and the chair to put together an agenda, but yeah, that's going to come up quick.
Okay, yeah.
That's just some thoughts.
Another thing I got, and I talked to Paul Marquardt about the, I guess there's a request going to be coming about a abatement or a change in valuations or something, or classification, I think, from family in Barnesville, from an estate situation. And they're going to be coming and asking us for a change in classification. And Paul wants to be a part of that. He cannot be here the 8th, so he said it could be 1st or the 15th, but that he could be here any other time, but not the 8th, he said. So. Okay.
We'll keep that in mind for setting the agenda. And also on the 1st, next Tuesday, it'll be next Tuesday, your state legislators are going to be here to communicate with the board, make a presentation on it, and we said establish dialogue of what ideas that you guys want to look at too and things. So that'll be next Tuesday.
Very good. Okay, Jenny. Vicki? It must be raining. Okay. All right. We are adjourned.